Hey playa, as we get closer and closer to Halloween, I wanted to share a few weird things that have happened to me over the years. Now, whether they're true or not, whether it was all in my head, I leave that for you guys to decide. But in this video, I'm going to share 5 scary stories that actually happened to me.
This is the Josh Speaks, you're watching the Josh Speak.
Growing up, I've always been a fan of horror movies and scary things. In fact, the first time I watched the Blair Witch Project, it terrified me. But I was so enthralled with the idea of the witches and the ghosts and all these things happening that I just wanted to dig more into it. And as much as I would read online about ghosts and demons, one thing my parents would never let me have is a Ouija board. Even though you can buy a Ouija board in Toys R Us and it's made by Milton Bradley, people were still terrified that it can actually conjure up demons and spirits. So I wasn't allowed to have a Ouija board, but my friend was, and one day we decided to gather up in his room and test it out. There were 4 of us that day, but one of my friends was so terrified to play that he decided to just wait in the other room in case something actually happened. We laid out the Ouija board and put 4 lit candles on the corners of the board to help us kind of evoke whatever we were trying to evoke. And that's when it got pretty weird. We put our fingers on the little thing that you're supposed to move and then asked if there were any spirits in the room, and slowly the device started moving over to yes. Of course, we started to blame each other, thinking that one of the other people was actually moving it themselves, but what happened next really weirded me out. Once it moved to yes, we asked the spirit what its name was, and as it started to move closer to the letters, I noticed that the light in the room from the candles started to shift to the other side. I had never seen anything like it before. The windows weren't open and somehow the light from the candles was able to shift. As soon as that happened, we all noticed it and ran out of that room. My friend who was waiting outside started to hear us screaming, and as soon as we came out said, "See, I told you I didn't want to mess with any demons." But what exactly happened? Did we invite a spirit into the room with us? Did that spirit control the way that the light was moving? We'll never know. That was pretty scary, but a few years later, we ran into something on Halloween Day that actually made us fear for our lives. One of my friends was throwing a Halloween party one year, so we all got dressed up and my dad drove us over to our house, which was pretty far away from where we normally lived. Since we got there pretty early, we decided, hey, let's just go trick-or-treating and walk around the neighborhood. Now this is before GPSs, so we had to actually memorize the route that we took while walking. And you know, as you walk around on Halloween, you see tons of different people in costumes, dressed up, trick-or-treating, all these different things. But one costume, one person in particular caught our eyes, and that was a person dressed up as Michael Myers. This guy looked legit, the full body costume, and it looked like he wasn't even wearing a mask. But what made us feel a little uneasy about him is that he wasn't really walking with the people on the block, he was just standing there with his knife in hand, staring at us. When we first spotted the guy about halfway down the block, it did kind of shock us a little bit, but we thought it was cool and kept walking on. And that's when it got weird. As we walked to the next block, suddenly he was there on the corner of that block too. It was almost as if he was following us or something. We started to joke around and say, oh look, it's the real Michael Myers and he's actually trying to kill us. And then it got weirder because as we walked to the next block, he started to walk on along behind us too. Now it was getting pretty weird. People were walking past him, but he just stood there with a knife in his hand looking at us. It was really starting to freak us out. So we wanted to go back to our friend's house, but he was standing along the way of the route that we wanted to take. So we walked across the street and guess what he did? He walked across the street too. Well, that's it. Michael Myers is gonna kill us tonight. Happy Halloween, everyone. From that point, we decided to start running towards our friend's house as fast as we could as he crossed the street and started walking along down it. When we got to our friend's door, we started ringing the bell frantically, hoping that Michael Myers wouldn't continue down the block, walk into the house, and then pretty much slaughter everyone there like Michael Myers likes to do. But once we got in, we locked the door and we told everyone what happened, and we kept peering out the window to see if he would appear, but from that point, he was gone. Was it just a person in a costume having fun, or was it actually Michael Myers? I mean, it's possible that because I was young, I played it up a little more than it actually happened in my head. But what happened to me next legitimately happened and I didn't know what to do about it. So at one point, my dad and his nephew were looking at different houses in New Jersey to buy, fix up, and then resell. So I decided as a young kid to go with them to just go check out the houses. And there was one house from the start that just rubbed me the wrong way. It was old, it was creepy looking, and I felt this weird vibe about it. We went inside and the realtor started to show us all the different rooms in the house. But one thing he saved for the very end was the attic. Now, this was one of those attics that you had to pull the string down and walk up the steps to get to. So it was a pretty scary, weird kind of place to begin with. Now, my dad and his nephew weren't as concerned with the attic as I was as a little kid. I decided to run up those steps and see what was actually there. And what I saw up there were dusty, barren wood floors, with the exception of a sunlight beaming down light on a little spot, and in that spot just happened to be a little doll-sized rocking chair. No, I am not making this up. This little beam of light illuminating this doll-sized rocking chair was super creepy. But what happened next was even creepier. I stood there with my head peeking out over the top of the stairs, looking at the rocking chair, waiting to see if something would happen. And that's when all of a sudden, the rocking chair started to rock back and forth out of nowhere. I kind of froze in place when it happened because I didn't know what to do. There was no wind coming in, there was no one up there, and all of a sudden this chair started moving as soon as I noticed it. I'm getting goosebumps right now telling this story. How weird is that? I ran back down those stairs so fast and over to my dad to tell him what happened, and he just kind of brushed it off and said, "Oh, you're probably making it up. It was probably something in your head." No, I know exactly what happened there in that attic, and that chair was moving on its own. Maybe when I walked up the stairs, I caused vibrations in the ground, and that caused the chair to move, or maybe it actually was wind and somehow I didn't notice where it was coming from. Either way, that chair moved, and I don't think I'll ever know how or why. As the years went on though, I started to believe less and less in the occult and the supernatural and things like that, until I actually had an experience on my college campus that made me realize, whoa, even though I'm no longer partaking in believing that stuff, there are people who do. There was a place on my college campus that me and my friends nicknamed Mermaid Fountain. Now, every single morning when we'd walk from our dorm room over to class, we'd walk through this kind of passageway through the forest and you'd pass Mermaid Fountain. I went through that walkway tons and tons of times, and nothing weird had ever happened to me, until one morning I decided to walk through it really early because I wanted to get to my class early enough so I can study right before my test. I had a pretty good amount of time to study for my test before 9 a.m., but as I was walking through the forest, I noticed a group of individuals standing with black robes and hoods covering their faces around a wooden table, all chanting. I know this sounds stupid, like it's right out of a horror movie, but this really happened to me. As I was walking, I started to slow down my pace to really look to see what was going on. I saw that with the robes on, they all had their hands in the air as they were chanting. I tried to really listen in to hear what they were chanting, but all of a sudden, they stopped chanting, and then they turned towards me. Zoom! I ran out of that forest so fast, I didn't even look back to see if these guys were following me, if they wanted to say something to me, but the whole experience was terrifying. Was this a satanic ritual, and were they practicing it on my college campus? Later in the day, I told all of my friends, but none of them seemed to know anything about what I was talking about. Did I catch the satanic ritual in the act? Was it a bunch of people cosplaying? I will never know. But one thing I do know is that I did 100% have an encounter with a ghost. This is not me speculating or me playing it up in my head. This is a 100% ghost experience. When we first moved into our old house, this girl that my brother was seeing at the time had a sense of the supernatural. And when she first entered that house and went up to the bedroom that was supposed to be mine, she said, "There's a spirit in here. A spirit of a woman." And me being the young kid that I was all like, yeah, I'm gonna get some with this ghost woman. Anytime that girl came over our house, she would constantly remind me of how she felt the presence of a woman up in that room. Now, growing up, that room kind of became a storage room. I didn't really sleep in it. I shared a room with my brother for years and years, until I moved into college. We finally fixed it up, and now I had a place of my own. You guys might remember that room as being the old place I used to record on my Josh Speaks videos. That was the room that I'm talking about. Something weird started to happen as soon as I started sleeping in that room. Now, I'm one of those people who like to sleep face down, so I had my back exposed, and every so often I'd wake up with scratches on my back. They weren't deep scratches or anything, but they were the kind of scratches that you'd get if like a cat ran its paw over your back or something like that, very lightly. For a while I just thought maybe it's the bed, maybe it's the way that I'm sleeping, maybe I'm rubbing against something, but that never seemed to happen when I would sleep over at my girlfriend's house. Plus, there'd be tons of times where I'd wake up in the middle of the night and want to open my eyes to look around, but I'd be afraid that I would actually see something there. My theory is this, that somehow the spirit that inhabited that room wasn't a bad spirit. Maybe they were just trying to get my attention. And honestly guys, this is what I truly think. That because I was doing the Josh Speaks and because I was trying to spread positivity and goodness, the ghost didn't do anything specifically to harm me that much. But I'm not too sure if that's actually the reason or not. All I do know is that as soon as I stopped sleeping in that room and kind of moved in and spend more time with my girlfriend, the scratches stopped. Now you're probably thinking there must be a logical explanation for this, and I'm sure there 100% is, but I wasn't the only one that experienced that kind of feeling in that room. Not too long ago, a friend of my mom's cousin needed a place to stay while she was in Brooklyn, so my mom allowed her to stay up in that bedroom. And what that girl said happened up there was also pretty scary. She never outright told anyone until my mom's cousin asked her if everything was alright, and that's when she told her that when she was in that room, she felt a spirit there watching her while she slept. I never talked to this woman before, and certainly my mom never told her what my experience was like, but somehow, if you lay out all the pieces, this girl a long time ago felt the spirit of a woman, I would have scratches on my back, and this girl also felt like a spirit was watching her. Look, I'm not saying, I'm just saying. But now I want you guys to weigh in. What do you think though? Which of these stories sound like it was just my imagination running wild, and which sound like they actually were true? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. I'm sure there are a lot of you out there that have had your own weird or supernatural experiences too, so I definitely want to hear them. Make sure to leave them in the comments too. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button below. I put out new videos every Tuesday and Friday sharing tips, ideas, and stories teaching you how to be your best self. And one more thing, stay away from those satanic cults in the forest, guys. There's no good that can come out of that. As always, guys, love and peace.